Hollywood, the home of the rich and the famous, the birthplace of cinema. The glamour, the riches, and the lifestyles leave us hanging on their every moment. But not all of its secrets are the glitzy success stories they seem. In fact, Hollywood, whilst propelling some to superstardom, has chewed up and spat out more ambitious hopefuls than you or I have had hot dinners. It has been host to scandal, murder, crime, and every inch of it has a secret to spill, if somebody's listening. Some of those will go to the grave, and some are already talking from beyond it. Hollywood has always been home to the devious, whether it be money-pinching studios, payroll drug dealers, shady fixers, mobsters, or simply stars with too much money and little to no inhibitions. It's time to peek behind the curtain. Let's take a look at some of the ghosts of the past and what macabre tales they have to tell. Before the likes of David Copperfield, Penn and Teller, Dynamo, or David Blaine, there was one man whose secrets, even now some 100 years later, have remained exactly that. With an impressive inventory of tricks, many of which have yet to be surpassed, it's no wonder he is referred to frequently as the master of magic, king of illusion, and a sensational escape artist. Born Eric Weiss in 1874 in Budapest, Houdini was a man ahead of his time. Yet magic often has a more simple explanation than what is posed. True in the case of Houdini, whose methods were at worst impressive, more often ingenious. In a cruel twist of fate, the man who exposed the deceptions of the spiritual world, whose tricks and illusions were masquerading as the channeling of ghosts and ghouls, died aged 52 on the 31st October, Halloween. As a result, most believe, to be a result of one of his regular stunts going wrong. The initial incident occurred in Houdini's dressing room over a week prior, when asked by a spectator whether it was true that punches in the stomach did not hurt him. Houdini offered a casual reply that his stomach could endure a lot. He was then delivered some very hammer-like blows below the belt. Houdini, unprepared as per his usual stage routine, was reclining on a couch at the time, having broken his ankle while performing. The official cause of Houdini's death was listed as peritonitis caused by a ruptured appendix. The real question is whether the punches made him more inclined to ignore the pain and seek out sooner help, or whether the punches caused the appendix to rupture in the first place. Here's where this Halloween tale gets really interesting. Houdini had previously made a pact with his wife, Bess. He promised that if contact from beyond the grave were indeed possible, he would do so. In typical Houdini fashion, he even came up with a code to ensure that no one could ever fake his spirit's appearance. The code word was Rosabelle, followed by the phrase, answer, tell, pray, answer, look, tell, answer, answer, tell, a shorthand used between the two when they had been on stage together. In their code, it spelled believe. Over the years that preceded, thousands held simultaneous seances in an effort to tempt his spirit into conversation. On one occasion, it was claimed his ghost was witnessed. In another, it wrote a letter. Thanks to his coded promise, all were refuted to be false, as Bess's requests remained unanswered. For 10 long, pre-agreed years, Bess remained devoted to holding this annual event in the hopes her beloved would one day reach out from beyond the grave. Finally, she announced to the radio audience listening, Houdini did not come through. My last hope is gone. I do not believe that Houdini can come back to me or to anyone. It is now my personal and positive belief that spirit communication in any form is impossible. I do not believe that ghosts or spirits exist. The Houdini shrine has burned for 10 years. I now, reverently, turn out the light. It is finished. Good night, Harry. Over the years, Bess herself had been contacted by numerous mediums who proclaimed to provide tidbits of potential messages, none of which ever showed any potential, until one day, she was told of a man named Harry Ford. The tale of his alleged encounter with the specter of her husband's ghost chilled her to the bone. The man claimed to have been conducting an unrelated séance when out of the blue he was contacted by a shuffling woman. She was not familiar to him but introduced herself as Cecilia and that she was desperate for her son to know the words forgive. She was so taken that she reached out to him. Strange that the word forgive is the word Houdini awaited in vain all of his life. It was indeed the message for which he always secretly hoped, and if had been given to him while he was still alive, It would, I know, have changed the entire course of his life. But it came too late. Aside from this, there are one or two trivial inaccuracies. Houdini's mother called him Eric. There was nothing in the message which could be contradicted. I might also say that this is the first message which I have received which has an appearance of truth. Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, a staunch believer and old friend, believed the message to be an outstanding case of accuracy. However, a year prior, Bess had told the Brooklyn Eagle that any messages would contain the word forgive. Still, the contact was enough to prompt Bess to keep in touch, and a year later, her persistence appeared to pay off when she was visited by Ford, who claimed that finally he had been given the Houdini code. When Bess heard the message, the one only she would recognize, she wasted no time organizing a second séance with Ford. Spare no time or money to undo my attitude of doubt while on Earth. Now that I have found my way back, I can come often, sweetheart. Give yourself to placing the truth before all those who have lost the faith and want to take hold again. Believe me, life is continuous. Tell the world there is no death. I will be close to you. I expect to use this instrument many times in the future. Tell the world, sweetheart, that Harry Houdini lives and will prove it 1,000 times. She was so convinced in the message that she immediately released a signed statement. Regardless of any statements made to the contrary, I wish to declare that the message in its entirety and in the agreed-upon sequence given to me by Arthur Ford is the correct message prearranged between Mr. Houdini and myself. Signed, Bess. Friends, however, were skeptical, convinced Ford was a fraud and that the code had inadvertently been revealed a year prior when a unique cipher used by them had been published in an unofficial biography. Soon enough, it wasn't just friends who were concerned, but the public. The headline of the New York Evening Graphic: Houdini message a big hoax, séance, prearranged by medium and widow. However, Ford's lawyer was able to provide 3 witnesses who all vouched that was in another part of town when his interview with reporter Rhea Jore occurred. Bess was so incensed that she wrote a letter to the New York Evening. This letter is not for publicity. I do not need publicity. I want to let Houdini's old friends know that I did not betray his trust. I am writing this personally because I wish to tell you emphatically that I was no party to any fraud. Now, regarding the séance, for 2 years I have been praying to receive the message from my husband. For 2 years, every day I have received messages from all parts of the world. Had I wanted a publicity stunt, I could no doubt have chosen any of these sensational messages. When I repudiated these messages, no one said a word, excepting the writers who said I did not have the nerve to admit the truth. When the real message, the message that Houdini and I agreed upon, came to me and I accepted it as the truth, I was greeted with jeers. Why? Those who denounce the whole thing as a fraud claim that I had given Mr. Arthur Ford the message. If Mr. Ford said this, I brand him a liar. Mr. Ford has stoutly denied saying this ugly thing. And knowing the reporter as well as I do, I prefer to believe Mr. Ford. Others say the message has been common property and known to them for some time. Why do they tell me this now, when they know my heart was hungry for the true words from my husband? The many stories told about me, I have no way to tell the world the truth of or the untruth, for I have no paper at my beck and call. Everyone has a different opinion of how the message was obtained. With all these different tales, I would not even argue. However, when anyone accuses me of giving the words that my husband and I labored so long to convince ourselves of the truth of communication, then I will fight and fight until the breath leaves my body. If anyone claims I gave the code, I can only repeat they lie. Why should I want to cheat myself? I do not need publicity. I have no intention of going on the stage or, as some papers said, on a lecture tour. My husband made it possible for me to live in the greatest comfort. I do not need to earn money. I have gotten the message I have been waiting for from my husband. How, if not by spiritual aid, I do not know. And now, after I told the world that I have received the true message, everyone seems to have known of the code, yet never told me. They left it to Mr. Ford to tell me, and I am accused of giving the words. It is all so confusing. In conclusion, may I say that God and Houdini and I know that I did not betray my trust. For the rest of the world, I really ought not to care a hang, but somehow I do, Therefore this letter. Forgive its length. Sincerely yours, Beatrice Houdini. Whether Bess and Ford fabricated the idea of Houdini escaping anything, even death to preserve his legacy, or if Ford did indeed receive word from the other side, remains a mystery. If Ford took advantage of a heartbroken widow and coerced the information he needed from her, he simply managed to validate the fraudsters Houdini crusaded against. Either way, the tale of his ghost doesn't quite stop there. In a recording studio called The Mansion, with various musicians have reported weird sights and odd occurrences. It has been host to the likes of Mick Jagger, Jimi Hendrix, David Bowie, the Beatles, the Red Hot Chili Peppers, Slipknot, and Linkin Park, to name a few. There are definitely ghosts in the house, said Red Hot Chili Peppers guitarist John Frusciante. But they're friendly. The Houdini Mansion, as it's come to be known, in Laurel Canyon, is one of the most persistent urban legends in Hollywood, despite having something of a convoluted history. For a start, there is only circumstantial evidence that Houdini actually lived there. A fire raged through Laurel Canyon and burnt a number of houses, including one believed to be where the original ties to the property began. A property nearby was believed to be where the Houdinis would stay. The two properties were connected by underground tunnels. Many suspect may have been used by Houdini to secretly move between the separate guest house and main mansion itself. The property actually belonged to a good friend, Ralph M. Walker. As a select few were privy to where the magician chose to lay his cuffs at the end of a taxing day, it's suspected he and his wife stayed with Walker while he worked on the films The Grim Game and Terror Island, most likely in the guest house that ended up being engulfed in the fire. The main evidence to support this theory is the housing of a deep water tank, not your standard decor. Sightings of apparitions have been a frequent occurrence since the 70s. The man, generally presumed to be Houdini, wanders the grounds, deep in thought. Seances are performed on a frequent basis in an attempt to make contact. Is it possible those tampering with the spirit world brought forth another poor soul, mistaken for Houdini? Whatever, the real story is, it's clear these legends surrounding this Hollywood landmark just get bigger with time. Whilst the site itself seems to be a bed of activity, the jury remains out on the entity's true identity. Was this his final act of evidence against the spiritualism he challenged so much, or was it a genuine wish to prove a love that transcended life and death? Or was it nothing more than the final illusion from the master himself? What of the apparition that roams the property holding an unknown connection? Could it be Houdini, trying to fulfill his promise to Bess? Or could it be a simple case of Hollywood stories and falsehoods becoming legend and fact?